According to reports, the Ukrainian armed forces have received its first set of Mi-17 HIP helicopters as part of U.S. military and security aid. Jack Detsch of Foreign Policy tweeted on Monday, May 16th, that the U.S. Department of Defense had sent 3 Mi-17 helicopters to Ukraine. These are only the first set of 11mm Mi-8 and Mi-17 helicopters that the U.S. promised as part of a new $800 million military aid package. Stay till the end of the video as we explore all the features of this helicopter and how it can help the Ukrainian army in the ongoing war. Ukraine's military has made outstanding use of NATO-supplied weapons, notably portable missile launchers and artillery, both prior to the invasion and in recent weeks. Despite Russia's superior firepower and weapons, Ukraine's forces have been able to maintain control of most of major urban centers by exploiting the poor planning and tactical blunders of the Russian forces. The Ukrainian government, however, has been requesting additional armaments, particularly fighter jets, in order to continue to resist the Russian forces, which NATO as a whole has so far refused to provide. Last month, Poland offered fighter jets to the Ukrainian government, but the proposal was scrapped after the U.S. intervened. According to Reuters, the new U.S. pledge will include some aircraft, but not the fighter jets Ukraine had requested to counter Russian air power. Instead, 11 Russian-made Mi-17 helicopters, which were originally destined for Afghanistan before last summer's chaotic departure, have been committed to Ukraine. While they are not as maneuverable as MiG-29 or F-16 fighter jets, some Mi-17 models can be equipped with anti-tank missiles and other armaments to strike Russian ground and air troops. Ukraine received 5 Mi-17 helicopters from the United States earlier this year. Armored personnel carriers and other vehicles, hundreds of portable Switchblade drone munitions, millions of rounds of ammunition, and a variety of other defense systems and protective gear are also headed to Ukraine. Other powerful weapon systems such as howitzers, which are basically portable field cannons that can shoot projectiles at long trajectories, including precision-guided munitions, are also headed to Ukraine. The Pentagon acknowledged that weapons shipments were already underway, though a representative refused to provide specifics or address questions about the helicopter specifically, including the specific model that the U.S. would be supplying to Ukraine. The Mi-17 is a Soviet-designed Russian military helicopter series that was first unveiled in 1975 and is still being produced at 2 plants, in Kazan and Ulan-Ude as of 2021. In Russian service, it is known as the Mi-8M series. The helicopter is primarily deployed as a medium twin-turbine transport helicopter, with an armed gunship version also available. The Mi-17 was built on the Mi-8 airframe, but with larger Klimov TV3 117MT engines, rotors, and transmission designed for the Mi-14, as well as an improved fuselage for higher loads. The 1545 kW Izotov TV3 117VM engine is an option for hot and high situations. The new Klimov VK2500 version of the Klimov TV3 117 engine with FADEC control has recently been exported to China and Venezuela for use in high mountains. The export designation is Mi-17, whereas the Russian armed forces refer to it as Mi-8MT. The tail rotor is on the port side of the aircraft instead of the starboard side, and there are dust shields in front of the engine intakes. The engine cowls on the TV2-powered Mi-8 are shorter and do not reach as far over the cockpit, and there is a space for a bleed air valve outlet aft of the exhaust. The Mi-8 was a huge hit when it first came out. However, due to a lack of engine power, it had difficulty flying in mountainous terrain. It was equipped with one 400-horsepower engine. To produce the Mi-17, a superior version was installed with better Klimov TV3 117MT engines, each producing 1,874 shp. As a result, the Mi-17's high altitude and overall performance were improved. It was a crucial characteristic for some of the company's exporters, such as India. The use of new engines resulted in a significant reduction in fuel usage. Furthermore, with one of the engines destroyed or damaged, the Mi-17 can limp back home. In the case of a failure, the power of another engine is instantly increased to 2,195 horsepower. This allows the flight to continue. The Mi-17 has a tail rotor, which is the most noticeable feature that differentiates it from the Mi-8. It was adjusted on the Mi-17 and is now on the left side, whereas the original Mi-8 had a tail rotor on the right side. Other minor upgrades to the Mi-17 include a new titanium alloy rotor hub and redesigned electric grid, and so on. The Mi-17 flew for the first time in 1975-1976. In 1977, production began. A Russian Mi-8MT was introduced the same year. In 1981, the first export Mi-17 was delivered. This transport helicopter is frequently used by military and civilian operators alike. The Mi-8 Mi-17 is used by more than 70 air forces all over the world. It is also one of the most widely used utility helicopters in history. The helicopter's crew consists of 3 members, a pilot, a co-pilot, and a flight engineer. The Mi-17 is capable of transporting 24 passengers as well as small vehicles. It has a payload capacity of 4,000 kilograms on board. It can also transport underslung loads weighing up to 3,000 kilograms. The Mi-17 has 2 clamshell back doors on early models, but a single ramp-type door on modern models. Window-mounted 7.62mm and 12.7mm trainable machine guns are available for the Mi-17. There are armed versions of this helicopter that can externally carry up to 1,500 kilograms of weaponry. Various anti-tank or air-to-air missiles, bombs, and pods with 57mm and 80mm unguided rockets, as well as a nose-mounted 20mm cannon, are among them. Newer versions feature the ability to attack at night. These come with a cockpit that can be used with night vision goggles, as well as a forward-looking infrared and laser rangefinder. These helicopters are frequently equipped with increased cockpit armor, IR jammers, and chaff flare dispensers in Russian service. These helicopters will help the Ukrainian force transport people and weapons to and from the battlefield effectively. And they can also mount weapons on some of these helicopters and use them to launch some air-to-ground or air-to-air attacks. Before we conclude, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. The US and other NATO states have been supplying Ukraine with a lot of weapons. But the question is, are these weapons making any difference? The answer is a resounding yes, as Russia has rebuked the commitment of the US and other NATO states to supplying Ukraine with weapons. A formal diplomatic note delivered from the Russian embassy to the US State Department said, "We call on the United States and its allies to stop the irresponsible militarization of Ukraine, which implies unpredictable consequences for regional and international security." Russia's warning indicates that the weapons shipments to Ukraine by the US and NATO are working as planned. It is undeniable that sending weapons is necessary for Ukraine to defend itself against an unjustified and destructive Russian invasion. However, it only addresses a pressing need and is limited in scope. Defensive help does not address the massive humanitarian disasters Russia is wreaking in urban areas as part of its military plan. The United States and its allies have pledged humanitarian and economic assistance, which must be included in its long-term support of Ukraine. Weapons are not the sole crucial necessity in the short and long term. Food, housing, medication, and medical treatment are probably just as important for the Ukrainian populace, and will remain for a long time after the war stops. What are your thoughts on the video? Let us know down in the comments section. Also, be sure to check out our video on critical Ukraine Army firing Caesar self-propelled artillery.